and good morning, and welcome to all of you. Welcome fourth graders, welcome parents, and welcome teachers. Let me ask you something. Of those fourth graders that are about learning from each other to use language in new and meaningful ways. And this is a very special day for these young authors. They worked hard, and they've written and they've rewritten, only to write again and edit again, and oh gee, I liked it better the way it was before, and finally now it's done. Producing a single author anthology has become a tradition in our mentorship program. It's a culmination that we strive towards, and the obstacles in our path were many. Sasha took her disc home one day and inserted it in her cousin's Mac, and then couldn't get it out without a crowbar. We lost 3 poems and 4 stories that day. Steph was taking one of his specially designed bubble baths made of shampoo, soap, conditioner, and bath gel. And his little brother runs into the bathroom with Steph's disc tightly in his fist and throws it in the tub. This was the day I made a rule: no LA discs leave my room, ever. Jackie wrote a huge story about Christmas in Hong Kong. She edited it, and then her disc crashed. She rewrote it and re-edited it, and it crashed again. You should have seen the look on her face. It looked like the disc crashed. Mariana had a disc full of stories which she gave me to hold, and I lost it somewhere in the black hole of my desk. I was frantic. I took all of her work out of the author's file and retyped it onto a new disc. And then, of course, I found her old disc. Mariana is the only author to have 2 identical discs. David constantly wrote stories at home that couldn't be transferred to our school computers, and stories at school that couldn't be corrected on his PC at home. So he had half stories on each disc that could never be united. Then he found an icon that looked like a bomb, transferred it onto his disc, and the disc exploded. Okay, these stories are a slight exaggeration, but I'm sure you get the idea. In spite of all the setbacks, we have managed to get this job done. But we could never have gotten it done without help from so many. First, I want to thank Nancy Cruz, whose advice and support and encouragement is invaluable. A hand for Nancy. I want to thank Andy, who made thousands of copies for us during school, after school, and on the spur of the moment when emergencies popped up. I want to thank Dave from the custodial department for cutting all those pages to the proper size. And a special thank you to Linda Tajanera, who taught us all wonderful new skills on the computer lab. Think of her when you see these incredible photos on the back covers. You've never seen anything like them, I promise you. These 7 young authors, whose books we are celebrating today, have experienced the entire book production process: writing, editing, illustrating, cutting, collating, cover design, plus the advertising and marketing of their books. Their book posters are displayed here today, announcing the arrival of bestsellers. Steph's includes a critical review from the New York Times and Bill Clinton. Okay, I would now like to call on, is Mr. K? Yeah. Mr. K, yes, and Miss Wolf, and I don't think Miss Knuckles could make it. Is she? Oh, she's here. Well, then come up and help us with a ribbon cutting ceremony so we can get this show on the road. We have a specially decorated scissors just for cutting a book launch.
Ito yung tape na pwede magawa ng
Oh, okay.
Okay, ready? Everybody? Okay, ready? 1. Oh, come on. Yeah. Ready? Not good enough. Ready? Together. 1, 2, 3.
There we go.
Take 2. You have a snip. Thank you.
And
I am pleased to present our young authors for grade 4. Each author will be called up front. They will read a piece or an excerpt from their book and then present a copy of the book to their parents. First, let me introduce Sasha Burks. Sasha's book, called Imagination My Way, has many moving stories about Sasha and her family and some truly fine poetry. Sasha Burks.
Earlier during the year, my class and I wrote scene queens for our anthology. I wrote environmental scenes. Typhoon, twisting killer, hurling, twirling, and whirling, crushing and smashing small houses, bully, trees, silent creatures, standing, falling, dead, disappearing and vanishing, helpless.
Patrick Free named his anthology My Mind Full of Writings. His central piece is an adventure about a young boy from Texas. He's going to share a little of that story with you today. I give you Patrick Free.
I like adventure stories. They excite me. I wrote one, but it was too long to read it all, so here is an exciting part of my story, Kidnapping. When he was halfway home, he heard someone say in a low voice, "John, come over here." John, curious as ever, walked slowly over to the dark, shadowy corner where the voice had come from. Then, suddenly, two men grabbed him from behind and pulled him into a warehouse across the street. John was terrified. He thought everyone in the world could hear his heart pounding the way it was. He was blindfolded, but the blindfold dropped a lot, and he could see that the warehouse had rows and rows of shelves with wooden crates on them. Written on each crate was type and destination. They walked him over to the far right corner where there was an iron spiral staircase leading downwards. They led John down the staircase. When they came to the bottom, in front of them was a door. One of the men pulled a key out of his pocket and opened it. They went inside a small room with a table in the corner and a phone on it. There were 3 doors, one in front of him and one on either side. John thought, "This is the end. This is where I die. Goodbye, life." The kidnappers shoved him forward. He stumbled and fell on his knees. They yanked him back onto his feet. He wondered, where am I? How long are they going to keep me here? Why did they kidnap me? Do my parents know? Is this for ransom? If you would like to hear the rest of my story, please read Mind Full of Writings. Thank you.
This is Angela Free. Please come to the podium. Vicky Keats' book, Pages Full of Nonsense, is filled with humorous stories and poems. Vicky likes writing about funny people doing odd things. Vicky Keats.
The parodies I'm going to read to you were originated from some boring old nursery rhymes that I jumbled up to make 1,000 times more interesting. Mary had a little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was black as coal. Whenever Mary played soccer, the lamb would score a goal. the teacher and the test. The time is up, the teacher said, to finish up your test. I hope you did a super job. I hope you did your best. And if the tests are really bad, I'll lock you in a chest. Little Bo Peep. Little Bo Peep has lost her sheep, looking for them sedately. Oh, what a pity. Oh, what shall we do? 'Cause we haven't had lamb chops lately. Little Miss Muffet. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating a dirty old shoe. Along came a spider and sat down beside her, and she ate that up too.
Mrs. Suzette Keith, please come to the podium. Stefan Kwiatkowski's anthology, Kentucky Fried Stories, is filled with wit and humor in his stories as well as his poetry. I believe he's going to share some of this humor with you today. Steph?
All people have something weird about them. In my case, it is a bald spot that is on my head. This is a piece that tells some reasons why. I have a bald spot that is on my head. Nobody knows for sure why, but there are some possible reasons. It is a birthmark from when I was born. Another reason is that I got chewing gum in my hair, and my mom ripped it out. Maybe it was that one day, when I was in my stroller, a woodpecker came along and started pecking on my head. But now that I think about it, I don't think that's possible. Or maybe, one night when I was sleeping, a dragon burned my head, and my hair in that spot only never grew back. Well, maybe not. It might be that a witch once put a curse on one part of my hair to never grow back. No, that one isn't good either, so let's just stick to the gum.
Mr. Stefan Kwiatkowski, Mr. and Mrs. Stefan Kwiatkowski, please come to the podium. David Reese has named his anthology A Weird Writing Book, and he has a whole section devoted to how to avoid doing those things that David hates to do. May I present David Reese.
I don't like having a bath, but I have to have it. This is a bit of a story in my book that tells some ideas on how not to have a bath. Some are funny and some are not, but I don't know what you will make of them. How not to have a bath. Then this is how. Well, completely how not to have a bath. Number 1, put your hands in the water and move them around to make splashing noises. Don't do this too often. Number 2, put a blob of chocolate on your foot and say that you have a horrible verruca. Number 3, have a shower instead of a bath. Number 4, say that you haven't done your homework. Number 5, then you have to rehearse your lines. Don't do this if you aren't in a school play. Number 6, splash water over yourself. Number 7, make your flannels and towels wet. Number 8, come home very late. Take the last school bus, or deliberately miss the last bus. Number 9, go to church and act religious so that your parents won't make you have a bath. Number 10, hide in your closet. Number 11, make a mess out of your computer and tell Dad that you'll fix it for him. Number 12, climb a tree and take the branches off as you go up. Number 13, to save the house's water supply. Example, put dynamite in the pumping system. Number 14, get sick. Eat a slug and snail and eat it. Number 15, say you have hepatitis. Number 16, know of a height chart in your house and say that you are too big for the bath. Don't do this if your family does not have a height chart. And
Mrs. Joanna Reese, please come to the podium. Jacqueline Teo has written an anthology called A Desk Full of Jumbly Work. It is filled with stories about personal adventures, shooting rapids, scary encounters with would-be kidnappers, Christmas in Hong Kong.
face off the sea, a different world existed. Fish swam around in crystal clear waters of the placid sea. A big loggerhead turtle named Marie swam in the distance. Marie fed Mamie and jellyfish. One day, some little bugs came to have a picnic on the beach. They left unwanted garbage like plastic bags and paper cups on the beach. A breeze blew by and swept the trash into the sea. Marie was hungry, roaming around in the waters for a tasty snack, and saw some jellyfish floating by. Without knowing that those jellyfish were few of those bags, Marie ate one of them. She choked. Marie struggled to shore. She heard voices murmuring around her. Marie was scared, but knew that humans were the only ones who could save her. Spontaneously, a voice stood up and said, "That turtle has a plastic bag in its mouth, and we should help get it out." Some of the boys' friends started pulling at the bag and finally tugged it out. Marie waded back to sea happily towards the setting sun, grateful to be alive.
Mr. and Mrs. Teo Bing Hung, please come to the podium. Mariana Zobel has named her anthology, My Imagination at Work. It has many stories about her family and friends, plus a great story about Mr. Lara. But today, she's going to share a different kind of story. Mariana?
The story that I'm just about to read to you is called The Broken Promise. I saw a postcard with the cover of Mrs. Coots's new book, The Warrior Dance, and it inspired me to write this story. A Broken Promise. In those days, when an adult gives birth to a child, they have to make a promise to the gods for the child. Isabella and Fernando Lima had just given birth to a baby boy in the small province of Batangas. They named the child Roman. Roman was a very happy child. He never lacked anything. Their promise was that Roman would never kill an animal, except for food. And if he broke the promise, he would die. Years had passed, and Isabella and Fernando became prouder and prouder of their child. One day, when Roman had his 17th birthday, Isabella and Fernando decided that it was time that they tell Roman what promise they had made for him. That is exactly what they did. When Roman finished college, he went to his parents. His parents told him that it was time for him to live his own life in the wilderness to prove his promise to the gods. So off Roman went into the wilderness. He made a house out of trees and leaves. Roman would also catch fish in the nearby lake for food. He had fun playing with the animals and going on long walks to pick flowers for his house. One day, while Roman was picking flowers, he heard a loud growl. He moved closer to the sound. Suddenly, a lion popped out. Roman was very scared. Without remembering his promise, Roman took out his very sharp spear. Roman aimed the spear at the lion and threw it as hard as he could. That night, Roman couldn't sleep because something was bothering him. He kept on thinking about that lion. Then suddenly, he remembered. He broke his promise. Late that night, Roman went into the middle of the forest and looked up into the dark night sky. Roman told the gods how sorry he was, but still he knew he was going to die. The next day, Raman ate a poisoned fish, and he died. The animals covered him with soil. They were very sad to see Raman go. The animals used his house for shelter whenever it rained. Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. High Raising Guys, please come to the podium. I would like to call on Mr. K once more, if I may, because my students are going to each give him a book that's going to go into the CMC. They'll be placed into the growing young authors section, and the authors' names will be included on the online catalog. So exciting. Great.
Thank you very much. I don't get the shot. Am I shaking it? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm just a little taller than one or two of these children. Thank you very much, children. These books which have been donated to our CNC, I know, will be the most read books in the CMC, not only because of the quality of the writing, and there surely is quality of writing, and that'll be one good reason for other children to want to borrow these books, but it's actually a fact that throughout our school, children generally like to read what other children write. It's often the most read material in a classroom, and so I'm sure that these books in the CMC will seldom be in the CMC because they will be out on loan. So thank you very much, and maybe we could all just show our appreciation to our grade 4 mentorship children for donating the books to the CMC. And this morning I would like to thank you, boys and girls, from our grade 4 writing mentorship program for sharing excerpts of your anthologies with us. Thank you to all of those who have been involved in setting up this morning's book launch. You as the audience, which includes your parents, and I'm sure we have very, very proud parents here this morning, and I'm sure that they are, your teachers, and also many of our grade 4 students. Thank you for being a good audience this morning. Thank you to your teacher, Mrs. Judith Baker, who's inspired you, I'm sure, guided you, encouraged you, motivated you, challenged you, maybe even demanded at times, but that's okay. Thank you, Judith, for the job that you've done with these children. I'm sure they're very grateful. Today's book launch of our grade 4 writing mentorship program demonstrates our commitment at the school to providing programs which are important in meeting the needs of our talented young writers. And I know that for our grade 4 students this morning, many of you, all of you, will hope to be in the grade 5 writing mentorship program next year. I know that this year's experience, should you be in that program next year, will stand you in very good stead for the following year. I hope that boys and girls, you too are proud of your achievements. You deserve to be. Again, thank you very much for sharing your work and making this morning's presentation a lovely, memorable, and at times humorous occasion. Thank you very much.
Well, I thank you all for coming. If the classes could go out one class at a time, and then we'll figure out what to do about my students are going to sit at this author's table, and they're going to sign their books. And parents, I'm not sure, we had ordered refreshments for you, but I don't see it, so I have no clue whether it's here or not.
They're by the door.
Oh, they're by the door. Yes, they are. Okay. And thank you all very much. We enjoyed this, and I certainly hope you do too.
Will